Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Holistic Man: Ordinary Men, Extraordinary Gifts. Today's guest is a man whose life reflects faith, service, and purpose in action. He is born and raised in Portsmouth, Virginia. That's right, the 757. That's my kinfolk. He has dedicated his career to helping children and families navigate life's most complicated systems. From his time working in and around schools to now serving in the field of child welfare, he's built a legacy of compassion and impact, always trusting God to make a way through every season. He is joyfully married to his amazing wife, and together they serve faithfully on the leadership team at Victory Church of Charlottesville, where he leads the men's ministry and co-leads communication. He's a leader, he's a servant, he's a husband, and he's a man committed to walking out his faith with integrity and grace. I need you to help me to welcome to the podcast Cameron, they call him Cam, Stokes. Hey, brother, how you doing, Cam? What's up, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad to have you on the podcast here tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I was like, I heard the intro and I'm like, all right, who's that? Like the way you were saying the emphasis. But yeah, like I'm so blessed. Thanks so much for having me. Really, just excited about everything that you have going with the podcast, and I am just glad to, be a small part of it. So,
Yeah, man. Listen, as I've been inviting people, I just knew that you were one of the men that I've known, for some years now, and truly just walking with the Lord, but at the same time doing big things as well. And so I just wanted to, get you on, capture your story, and have you share just a little bit of the testimony of what God, has done in your life and how He's brought you, and just come as your background. So, thank you for being here. So I'm excited just to hear what you have to share and just hear a little bit more about your story, because I know it's one that is a powerful testimony.
yeah, it's God has been moving.
Listen, when does He not? I'm always, when is He not? Because I'll be like, Lord, sometimes you got to chill out. Maybe for a
Slow
second.
down. Slow down
Right.
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Because I'll be like, man, you moving too fast, God. Like, what? And so trying to keep up with His pace is always the interesting part of life.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it's like keeping up with his pace, but also understanding that like his pace is not our pace either. So sometimes I'm like, I'm trying to speed up, and everything just going too slow. So
Right. I don't got that gear. I don't got that God gear. Like, I can't shift no more.
right.
No, but that's awesome, man. So yeah, so let's just get this thing started, man. Let's start, how you came to the Lord. Let's start there at the beginning of that.
Yeah, so it's always so interesting when I think about it because I feel like recently I've just, told the story a lot. And it was really just reflecting on, yeah, like what is it, right?
Mm.
Or what is my like story, right? What is my path to faith? And I think it's interesting because growing up, like I never remember a point where I didn't believe in God.
Mm.
I grew up going to church, going to Sunday school, those things. My parents weren't, the like, we're going to church every single day type people that, like we hear about a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of people have that experience, but we were, we went on Sundays. I went to Sunday school. I went to my aunt owned a Christian school. So from 2 to 4, and then from second and third grade,
Hmm.
I went to like my aunt's school. So it was a Christian school. So, every morning we started off by saying, all the books of the Bible and all the, Bible songs and things. So yeah, so I just say that to say, I don't remember a point where I didn't, believe God to be a thing. I do, however, vividly remember when I truly was able to recognize like the power of God and like um what he's just like has promised for us, right? And what he has promised for me. So again, like I said, grew up going to church and things. My parents ended up separating for a little bit, and so around that time, we kind of slowed down with
Mm-hmm.
going to church. We would, go the holidays, so you go Easter and Christmas and New Year's, and those things. But that was it, was it see any Christians? So yeah, so we would do that. But my aunt, so my mom's sister, it was a different story. So she didn't have any kids, but she was so she was a missionary. So she would travel all around the world. She would introduce us to so many different things. Like she went to churches that had like Christian like rap groups that were like signed. So she would always come with like CDs and different things. Um, and when she ended up passing away in
Mm-hmm.
2017, but like right before she had passed away, like she was getting her PhD in theology, and she was at a church that was a traditionally white church. And she felt called to join them, and they felt called to, you know, grab onto her to really just like diversify what they had been doing. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I attribute a lot of my own faith journey with my aunt. So I remember right before she passed away, I was in my first year of college, and um, I came and I was like, hey, Aunt Di, like, I really want to go to church, but like I haven't found like a black church that I like wanted to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And I vividly remember her telling me that, she's like, Cam, you shouldn't go somewhere just because it's like a black church, right? You should go where God is like calling you to, right? You should open yourself up. Like if you end up at a black church, or you end up in a black church, but you can't just like cut yourself off to what God is doing in your life. And I just thought that was so powerful. And then probably about a year later, she ended up passing away. And it was a lot. It was hard. It was hard for
Mm-hmm.
me because this was the first like close family member that had passed, and so that side of my family was really just kind of close knit. So it was just my grandparents. They had two daughters, my mom and my aunt. My aunt didn't have any kids. My mom had me and my sister. So like we were just a very tight,
Yeah.
family.
Connected.
Exactly. And so when she passed away, it was a lot. It was a lot. I think I was like 19 still. So like, still like a little bit older to be able to navigate it, but also still just in an earlier stage, right? Because she was a like second mother to me. And so with her passing, I think that is really what propelled me into my faith, because it just her absence was missing from our family, right? She was the one that before we got off the phone, she was like, I love you. She was the one who, always would point the family back to God. Like that was her. And that was just really missing from our family. And I just really felt this strong pull to, I don't know, fill that gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt that strong pull to fill that gap. And so that's what really pushed me into trying to take my faith serious. And, like it was definitely baby steps, but again, it started off with every time we got off the phone, I was like, I love you. My family, I love my family. I never questioned my family's love for me, but we just weren't I love you like my aunt was, but
Right.
like we weren't the, I love you before you got off the phone type, family. And now, like, my parents will call back and be like, "Oh, you didn't say I love you," like, "Are you okay?"
Right.
So I'm like, "Oh yeah, I just forgot," But
Right.
but yeah, like I think that, and that's something very small, but I think that I was able to attribute that back to just like my aunt's love for God and like her
Mm,
love, like what God bestowed upon her to um, just be like a light to people, right? And to
hmm
spread that love, not only to others, like I said, because she was a missionary, she was able to do a whole bunch of things everywhere, but to her family, right? And really being
Yeah.
that spiritual center for our family. And that's what really just like pushed me to just, be just explore what my faith looked like.
Right.
And I think what the thing that really pushed me over the edge was 2022. I decided I was going to propose to my now wife. And
Yes.
yeah, and through that process, I proposed and everything, but I just had this crazy just like conviction of a lot of things.
Mm,
So I proposed in November and my birthday's in December. So because my birthday's in December, it always is like, it's this weird situation where it's like I'm reflecting on a new year, but it's also like actually going into a new year.
right.
So I'm
Right.
always, figuring stuff out. But that year it was heavy. I was like, oh my goodness, like what? Like I don't know what's going on. Like I was like I really need to lean on God. Like I don't know. And it really took me connecting to one of my best friend. He was someone whose like walk with God I really admired, and I reached out to him and I just was like, hey, like I really admire like your walk. Like this is what I'm dealing with right now. Like I really want to just like get more in tune with who I am and my faith.
Mm,
And because in that conversation, like he really just like helped me to process a lot of my thoughts. He also really helped me to just figure out what are those starting points to really get deeper and to really take things serious. So we would, send sermons back and forth on YouTube and do different things, or we would debrief sermons. So that at that point, so January 1st, 2023, I was like, I am going to somebody's church. Like I am physically going to church. Um, and one of my coworkers, which turned into like one of the most amazing friends I've ever had. And I'm very thankful for her because I also contribute her to my journey. She was the music director at a local church
mm,
where it was. And I realized the church was like 5 minutes from my house. And so I was like, hey, like I'll go. And so I started going. I took my little notebook and I was there. Like I was taking my notes. I was there every Sunday. And like the Sundays that I wasn't there, it was um, I don't know. Like I just had something to do, right? Like it was
hmm
never like I don't feel like going. It was like a no, Cam, like you're gonna go.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I really pushed myself to do that. And then as I did that, so this is when I was in Nashville. So I knew I was getting my master's. I knew I was gonna graduate in a few months. And so I was like, wow, Cam, you really are getting invested. You really want to get involved, but then it's like, oh, like I can't get involved. Then like 2 weeks later, I'm leaving.
Right.
Um,
Right.
like yearning for that involvement, but I was
Mm,
like, what I really want is to. My motivation was really just trying to be like the best husband that I could be, and I was
mm,
like, I really want to just like be a husband and just like a leader for my family the way that like God has just like designed for me to be.
mm,
And so that's what pushed me to go to school. I mean, not go to school, go to church. And when I was at church, I noticed that there were like no men. What's
mm,
like I just was like it was, and there were men, but not as many men as there were women.
right.
Uh, and I just thought it was so interesting because like pastors are more often than not men with um, no men in the congregation. So I was like, let's unpack that. Let's figure that out.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, fast forward, like I said, that was one of the motivations for going. And then as I was going, I really felt like I really wanted to um, get involved, but I was like,
Yeah.
dang, like I can't. I'm gonna leave, so okay, I'll figure this out later. And so when we ended up moving with my wife, I was like, look, the first thing we need to do is we need to find a church and we need to get involved. We're going to do this. And that's what we did. And we found a
Mm.
church, and we just like started to get involved. And like, it was one of those things where we're getting involved and then we just get like tapped to do different things. And
Yeah.
then this is like, oh, hey, you helping with the social media page, but like, welcome to the leadership team. And like, welcome to planning these things and these meetings and things. And it really kind of snowballed into something that I don't know, it was just truly amazing. And I think that it really just pushed me personally in my faith,
Mhm.
um, and believing in God, of like, look, God, if this is what you got for me, like
Mm.
I'm down for the ride.
Right.
And yeah, and like I said, so got to the new church and we just got crazy involved for a variety of different things, and then ultimately now, recently, I got appointed as the leader of the men's ministry at my church, where that is something that I'm extremely passionate about. Right? How can we care for men in
Yeah.
church, and just allow them to, one, truly, get everything that God has for them, right?
Right.
And also be able to lead their families well.
Hmm.
So you have, of course, men who um, are married, but you have some that aren't. That are just figuring it out, right? Like younger,
Yeah.
especially younger guys that are just
Right.
trying to figure everything out. Um, and that's a passion of mine, is just giving them a community to talk through things and to be through
Mm.
things. I think that all guys go through
Yeah.
different things. And so having that opportunity to just like be vulnerable, but
Mm.
have a person, a group to continuously point you back to God, is something that I'm I'm just really passionate about. I never expected, again, from going to church, you know, 3 times a year, to now when we're not at church, I'm like, oh, I got to turn on a live stream. Like, oh, I'm like, like, where are my friends at? So yeah, that was my uh, journey.
No, that's good, man. No, appreciate you sharing that. I think you share so many good old things, and then you hit on some things there at the end that I kind of want to get your experience on, especially one, talking about your aunt and was a missionary. Where were some of the places that she traveled to as a missionary, if you remember some of those places and spaces? And did you ever go with her on any of her trips?
Yeah, no. So I never went with her on any of her trips. Which I'm like, so my first time on a plane was in 2017. I went to Ghana in
Oh wow,
2017.
that's a great first plane ride.
Yeah, so that was interesting. But I was actually supposed to go in 2016, and my aunt was actually going to. I was talking with her because she was the only one in my family that had been out of the country.
Mm,
My grandma had she passed away and never been on a plane, and she was very content
mm,
with never going on a plane. And my dad was in the military for a little bit, so he had been out the country, but not like leisurely.
mm,
But my mom had never been, and so I called my aunt because I was like, hey, I have this opportunity to do this class, and I don't know what to do because you need a passport, and I don't know what to do. And so she's talking with me, and then I was like, okay, well, I'll just wait because I'm not gonna be able to get a passport in time. And then I just called her to like help me talk me through it.
yeah.
And we get off the phone, and she calls me back, and she was like, well, how much is the like expedited fee? Like, I really want you to go. Like, I especially want you to go to, because this was also going to be a trip to Ghana was one of the places. It wasn't the only place. I think it was Ghana, Morocco. That trip would have been,
Okay.
and she was like, she really wanted me to go to it, and then I was like, I was like, thank you, and I need to plan a little bit better
Mm.
for it. It's like I admitted that I needed to plan a little bit better for it. Um, so yeah, so the following year, she actually that's when she passed away,
Mm.
um, and then I was like, I gotta go. I was like, I gotta get this passport, and I gotta go, and so I got the opportunity to go. Um, and one of the places she had been to Ghana, so that's what she was like. She wanted, she had been to Ghana, I think Nigeria, um, and she had been to some European countries. I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
It's one of those things where, like, I'm like, wow, before I traveled myself, it wasn't really things weren't as relevant. But now it's like,
Right.
okay, I've traveled.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, oh, like I would love to just like talk with her about just
Mm.
everything. Um, but yeah, I just know that she had been to multiple countries, just different, African countries, European
Hmm.
countries, Asian countries. She's just been all over, South America. Like she's just been all over, and she just would, talk about her experience just being in other countries and really soaking in culture and just the importance of that, and really again just like pointing it back to um, God. And I just thought that was so beautiful.
No, that's awesome, man. To know that she was able to go to those different countries and be a missionary in that sense, and knowing that she was called to be sent out in that
Mm.
way. Because I would like, man, listen, Jesus, I'm gonna need for you to put some funds together for that because
I
that's a
don't know.
lot. Like I don't know, I ain't heard that call, to go to the nations in that sense. When we got nations here in America, in that sense that I can drive or jump on a plane that's not a 15-hour flight to
Mm.
get to. But no, but that's awesome that you were able to experience that. And then you mentioned also, you said that when you were going to church, you noticed the church that you went to, you noticed that there were not a lot of men in
Mm.
church, and it was predominantly women. And the trend is in many of the churches we have here, today, is that's the case. So in your experience, thus far, why do you think that is? Why do you think there's a little bit more women that are engaged in church versus men?
Mm. And I think that I actually think that that's like really important to use the word engaged, right?
Mm.
Because off just going, I was like, like there's more women here than men, and it was making me frustrated. But then I realized, as I started to ask more questions, I started to observe more that men were in the church. They came on Sunday, but it
Hmm.
just was women were the ones who were the volunteers, right? Who
Hmm.
were doing the things during the week, who were the face of a lot of the ministries and initiatives. So it was really that engagement
Hmm.
that was something that was really big. And I think that again, I think that the church in general can just do a better job
Mm.
at specifically targeting and engaging men.
Yeah.
And I think that is the biggest thing. It's like there's not as many targeted opportunities for men to come together and fellowship and again be vulnerable, because I think that that's another level of like vulnerability. Like with faith, it's vulnerability, submission, all the
Hmm.
things that society says that men shouldn't do.
Right. Right.
So that's the big thing, right? Where okay, men need to know that there's a space where they can be themselves and be
Hmm.
safe,
Yeah.
and multiple opportunities to do so in different things. So I know that a lot of churches, they will do like a men's breakfast or something like that, or like a men's event like once a year. But it's like, look, if you're just doing this thing once a year, how are we really ensuring that these
Yeah.
men are engaged not only on Sundays, but
Hmm.
just engaged in the church, and not
Right.
even with the leaders, right? So you see, like, pastors or like other like higher level leaders in the church, are are traditionally men,
Yeah.
but it's like, look, you don't have to aspire to be like a pastor or a minister or anything, but just being someone who is, again, loves God, loves people, wants to um, help others, just get what God has for them,
Right.
in whatever
Yeah.
capacity, right? And just
Yeah.
fostering opportunities for men to do that is honestly the way to really get guys more invested.
Yeah. No. No. That's good. Yeah. Definitely. I think of it as you you look in the scriptures, you see Jesus going after men.
Mm,
The 12, like women came, they were there, but the people that he brought around him was his 12 apostles. And they were men that he brought along and was able to pour into them, was able to teach them, was able to guide them, was able to keep them accountable. He gave them power. He gave them responsibility. He didn't baby them. He didn't hold them by the hand. He's like, hey, you gonna mess up, but here I am again to show you how you get it right. And I think that, like you said, with the church, the engagement is not there because a lot of times, and like I said, this is not all the time, a lot of times men don't see themselves
mhm,
reflected in the congregation or even in church and in the Bible themselves.
mm,
That identity piece I think has been somewhat distorted. And we've some of the men have kind of settled. Well, like if the women running stuff, okay, they don't need me. And
yeah,
you need people like you said going after and championing men so they know, oh, like you said, there's a space for me here. They need me here. They need my strength. They need my story. They need my testimony. And there's a safe space to do that where I won't get judged, where I won't get mocked, where I won't get ridiculed for being who God's called me to be. And I feel like a lot of men, like you said, put up that stoic, mentality. Like I don't need this. I don't need God in that way. I'm here because my wife is here or whatever. But at the same time, they don't understand that they need to connect and engage with Jesus and God in a deeper sense than what they are because it'll help everything that they're facing. So so everything they're facing goes to how they connect with Jesus.
yeah, absolutely. And like you were saying, just like what we're called to do, like first and foremost, going back to the disciples, like we are called to make disciples,
Yeah.
and also too, we like are called to make fishers of men, right? Like we're called to be fishers of men. So it's like that specific, like it's
The broader sense of the word, but
the
then
broader sense of the
yeah,
word. But if we think about it in this context, it's like, look, like as men, we can go out and just continue to pay it forward, right?
yeah,
Continue to um, just give back to younger generations, or even not even necessarily a younger generation, just give back to guys who grew up in later generations that
mm,
may have a more um, rigid view
yeah,
of like masculinity
yeah,
and what it means to again be vulnerable and like and transparent with a lot of things as well, and
right,
being able to push men, because I think that that's been something as well that I've really benefited from, being in those like multi-generational settings where it's like you have um, you know Gen Z to baby boomers all in a
right,
room, and everybody in between just talking and discussing things, and you learn that um, there are a lot of differences just because of how society was, but
yeah,
something that is consistent is, again, that society says like men should be this, men
Yeah.
should be that, men should be this. And, now we see, in society this day and age, it is going to be a little bit more, just progressive in the sense of
Mm-hmm.
thinking um, about talking about your feelings, right? To
Mm.
be talking about, um, yeah, just things that honestly, like men weren't really allowed to talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
before. So we see those things. So I always found a lot of value in having those discussions because it just gives me an opportunity too to be like, you're right. Like sometimes I'm like, sometimes my views, I'm like, well, why do you think like that? But I'm like, you think like that because that's what everybody thought, like,
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, no, that's good, and I think the one thing that you keep, hitting on is that men need vulnerability.
mm,
They need transparency. They need a place to do that. And so, how have you grown in that and been able to be vulnerable and transparent and being able to express your feelings in a healthy way and not just, because sometimes people just share anything with everybody.
right.
And there's got to be a balance. So how do you balance, being vulnerable, sharing your emotions in a way that's healthy, and at the same time not allowing everybody to be in your business at the same time?
Right. And I love how you brought that up too, because people think just because I'm talking about something, then I'm being vulnerable, but it's like no. Like oversharing is also like a trauma response. It's not.
I saw that too. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
It's but for me, what has helped me a lot is first and foremost therapy for
Mm,
myself. I have had multiple different therapists, and they vary. Most of my therapists have been women, but my most recent therapist, it was specifically like, look, I'm in a stage of my life where I do really want a male therapist, and I also want a Christian therapist. So I was
mm,
like, I don't know if I can figure it out, if I could get it. And God actually sent someone like a male Christian therapist
wow.
to to me that I clicked with from day one, and I really attribute a lot to him in his sense of pushing me
Mm,
to have conversations, because I do feel like I have tried to be a person that is very vocal about my struggles,
mm,
right? And being intentional about it too. So when things are happening with me, I'm not, I used to be younger, right? Because it's like you feel like nobody cares. So you share a whole bunch of stuff with people,
right.
and you're hoping that somebody will like care and like latch on, but then also too, you're oversharing with people who don't have that same investment. So then you're
Mm,
putting yourself into further disappointment because the person, they didn't ask you to overshare, right? But I was that person. I was that person, and in growing, especially with my faith and things, I
mm,
realized that God was calling me a lot to speak about my journey as
mm,
well, with different things. So I do feel like I was able to, just be open about things. But I think with going through therapy, what I have just learned and what's really helped me is being able to push people to have conversations, specifically like the guys in my life. So
mm,
what my therapist, what I really value, one of the things that he said was just that, like, I was talking about something. He was like, all guys are thinking about this, and all guys want to talk about this thing,
mm,
but there aren't opportunities for them to talk about it. There
mm,
are opportunities for them to connect with each other in a way that helps them mutually grow.
Right.
So that is something that um, really stuck with me and has been sticking with me. And that's something that I've really tried to do, just like in my own personal friendships, right?
Mm.
I'm like, look, I want to be really intentional with the guys that I do have in my circle, where
Mm.
I'm like, one, I want to be sure that when I am dealing with something, that I have guys that I can go to that will, one, support me, but two, point me back to God.
Right.
Always point me back to God, and vice versa, right? Guys that I know, if they're dealing with something, they come to me
Mm.
and I can point them back to. That's
Right.
that mutual thing. And I think that that's really what's helped me a lot, is really focusing on those relationships where it's like, I don't need like 20 different people. You just need like two or three guys, and
Yeah.
just, again, talking about things that you think are, you think maybe like weird, or you think maybe, but I'm like, we're all going through similar things. We just, we don't talk about it. So if we talked about it, how how just imagine how much community we are missing out on
Mm.
by not talking about the things that we're going through.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's good. I think that's a powerful last statement. How much community are we missing on by
Mm,
not willing to be vulnerable with someone that God has sent or
mm.
put in our in our path because we want to be like, oh, I got it. No, you don't got it.
Right.
You don't got nothing. You got a false sense of control going on right now, and you about to crumble and fall. And I love the fact that you brought up therapy because so many men, we've seen a trend of it in the last maybe decade or so of men, taking therapy seriously. But before now, like, men was like, therapy who? I ain't gonna talk to nobody, and I think that's so important. So how can we, in just your experience, how can we help men understand, especially Christian men, church men, just men, period, like, you need Jesus and a therapist.
Hmm. Yeah. So, and it's funny because it's not even just like men, it's culturally, right? Like, I
Mm.
remember, just talking with my mom about starting therapy, and she's like, "You good?" And I'm like, "I'm okay."
Right, you get shamed.
Yeah,
You get shamed in a sense.
and I think what I have learned um, is just talking about it more.
Mm.
And so, and not kind of shying away from it and being more explicit. So when I'm talking with my family, but also when I'm like talking to guys, right? Like, I'll be like, oh, like, I have. They'd be like, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? Like, oh, I'm going to therapy. Or like, I'll be like, oh, like, I'll do that after I go leave from therapy. Like small, subtle
Yeah.
things, right? Where it's like, I'm going to therapy. It's maybe if I talk about it enough, that'll, push you
To
to
go.
want to also go, as
Yeah.
well, without, without directly. And then two, I think talking about that as well, when guys do come and we do have conversations and stuff,
Mm.
just being like, okay, like, have you ever considered this? You ever thought about this? And a lot of guys will say, I have, I tried it for a little bit, didn't really work out, and then really just pushing them to be like, well, there's a lot of therapists in the world, and especially like post COVID, like the
Yeah.
whole telehealth like industry
It's
is
booming.
booming. So there are a lot of people out there, and so that is another thing too. I'm like, I really push people to just like keep trying. Like,
Yeah.
go to a session, go to two sessions, and then if you're not feeling it, try somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that that's been. I have seen the fruits of just those small seeds or just like
Yeah.
those purposes as well.
Wow. That's awesome. That you see the importance of taking care of your mental health. As a Christian man, a lot of the, people don't even understand, like, we love that, quote of, in Isaiah where he's counselor, you know, but then we don't use him as counselor.
Mm.
Like that's one of the names that describes Jesus. So, but then, you're not talking to Jesus.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you are when you pray, whatever, but at the same time, you need a person
Right.
that is an example, an emulation of Jesus that you can see in the flesh that can help you, that's skilled enough to walk you through the lies, the thoughts, the pain, the triggers, the pride, the things that we as men deal with and that we bottle up and we've suppressed because many of the times it comes up as anger.
Yeah.
That's that, and it's and that's the outcome. That's not even the root of what a lot of men are dealing with. It's just that's the only emotion we as men can publicly demonstrate, and people are like, oh, you can do that, but anything else, no, we can't do that.
Yeah. Like, and that's what I always say. I'm like, God made therapists.
He
Like,
did.
I'm like, we are all have our own gifts. We are all have, purposes that have been outlined, you know, from when we were in the womb, right?
Yeah.
And so why not say, hey, let me go talk to somebody who can, again, like you were saying, like help you process some of your thoughts. I don't think that it's not there to replace your
Yeah.
relationship with God, right? You're
Correct.
not, worshiping this person, but
No.
what you are doing, this person is there to help you talk through things, help you figure it out. And again, and if that is something that is important to you, of ensuring that there is some sort of just like scriptural background to the, to the guidance that you're getting, there are like faith-based therapists
Yes.
that can do that for you, right? Like
Right.
if you need that, they're there and they can do that for you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that it's so important for us to really, I don't know, just think about it differently.
Yeah, and I think that's good, to think about it differently. And I think we have to also, like you said, break the kind of the stigma of culture that men are shamed or, condemned, or it is embarrassing that they have to talk about things that they're mentally dealing with, and we have to be the ones to encourage and demonstrate it. And like you said, I love that you're, every time you go, you talk to somebody, hey, I'm going to therapy. Like,
Mm.
Cam's like, ain't no shame in my game. Listen, y'all.
Not at all.
I got Jesus and a therapist. If I didn't have both, I might be somewhere else. You
Listen.
know, and I think that's so great because then, as they see you and your growth, and seeing how you're progressing and seeking after God, they're like, okay, he got the God thing, but he also has this therapy thing. I
Mm.
might need to figure out how to add that to the repertoire. Like it's just an accessory, you
Yeah.
know. Jesus is still the main thing,
Yeah.
but then you need them therapists to help you navigate some of the mud,
Hmm.
And I think that's so great that you do that. And so we're still talking to talk about this emotional. And I love that, we're here in this space talking about this. So how do you, I know you talked about going to therapy, but how do you manage, or navigate your emotional pain or when stress comes up that's in a healthy way? What are some of the maybe tools in your toolbox that you use to kind of help navigate emotional pain, stress, anxiety, whatever it may be, the pressure of what it means to be a man?
Yeah. I think that, well, first off, my favorite thing to do is just like go walking, just
Mm,
to go walk like in nature, just to kind of separate myself from what's going on, just give myself some time to process my thoughts. But I really think um, what I love to do while I'm doing that is actually listening to worship music.
Mm,
And I think that that is also something that I have had to push myself on
mm,
as a man. So thinking about just like the church setting in general, right? Like you have worship and then you have discernment. And
yeah.
with worship, it's you're singing the songs, you're doing it, it's a lot of emotions flying around, and that's what I've always seen.
Mm,
But it was not until I truly sat with the lyrics, sat
mm,
with the things, sat with the atmosphere, really just like brought God into the moment with me
mm,
while I am processing, that I really was truly able to make strides
mm,
in everything that I was doing. And I think that that's something that really just like continues to keep me centered, just that opportunity to just like submit
yeah.
and to be like, look, right now it's just me, God, and my thoughts. And so, God, do your thing with it. And yeah, it helps me so much not
Mm,
to just like Stu, and like going back to what you're saying about things just becoming anger. Like the more you suppress these emotions, they end up becoming anger and aggression and
yeah.
something that we don't desire them to be. But yeah, for me, it definitely would be just like walking, listening to some worship music, really like putting myself like, you know, at his feet
Yeah.
and, you know, with my problems.
No, yeah, definitely. No, that's good. And I think, more men need to take advantage of that. And, the one thing that I've even noticed and even learned, even in my life, there are certain emotions and things that I've suppressed for years. And they're laying on top of wounds, pain, you know, and when it comes up, you have no control. Like we control when we suppress it, and we control when we, release it. But if we suppress that thing, you have no control what it's going to affect, where it's going to go, and you never know how it's going to bubble up.
Yeah.
Anything. It's a ticking time bomb, really, in that way.
Yeah, and the enemy really like uses that, right? Like it's like I like like the enemy uses that aggression and uses that like just repressed feelings and uses that shame and all of those things, really uses that as like a playground.
Right.
And so it's like it comes out and then that's not over.
Yeah.
It's not the end of it, right? Like it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now it's we didn't went all the way up here. Now it's coming down. Yeah. So
Yeah. No, definitely. The enemy does use that. The one thing I hate about the devil is that he know how to watch. He's strategic. He has so much game film on us in that way, and we take that for granted. Like, he lost already. We got the victory, but at the same time, we have to be, as Paul says, we're not ignorant of the enemy's devices. And so we have to be more strategic. We have to be more willing to understand that there are things that we, in a sense, give him ammo to use against us without us taking the opportunity to go to God and allow him to handle it with care or remove it or heal it. We want to hold on to it and say, no, I want to sit in this just a little bit longer because it feels good to sulk. It feels good to be angry. It feels good to be sad. It feels good to be depressed. It feels, whatever it may be, the feeling may be. And God's, asking, say, hey, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And I feel like a lot of us are restless, you know, because we're battling so many things and we haven't had the opportunity to be in a safe space to release it, or at least get yoked up with another brother so that he can help us carry that. Because some things, you got to release and let go. Let it go, drop it. Some things you have to walk through with somebody till they get to a part where they can drop the weight and carry let go of the baggage, because there's still something that they're processing through that they have to learn that God wants to use to help them to elevate mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to be a better man. I think, the battle for us as men is not to be in isolation, because we like to be isolated. We like to be to ourselves. I saw somewhere online, like, where it's talking about relationships. Like, we don't, what did they say? They said, we like to be to ourselves, but we don't want to be alone. When we talk about relationship, like, if we have our lady or a wife or whatever it may be, sometimes we just need our space, but we don't want you to be we don't want to be lonely. We want to be left alone, but not lonely, and sometimes, that loneliness can get you in trouble. That can get you in trouble. And we as men have to understand that that's a feeling, that's emotion, loneliness. And a lot of times the enemy uses loneliness to get us to expose ourselves to things that God never intended for us to be, exposed to. So as we're talking about this still, because this is great. This is great information and topic and conversation we're having. As you're leading the men's ministry, at Victory Church, what are some of the things that you are implementing to help the men there grow in their emotional and mental health? And what are some of the things that you've experienced that have kind of stretched you leading the men's ministry?
Yeah, so I think answering your second question first, what's really stretched me is knowing that things are not on my time, like we were talking about when we started.
Right.
Yeah, just knowing that. So the men's ministry was not established before me. So like
Okay.
there were men's events here and there, but like a
Okay.
formal ministry, like I am the
The guy.
founding support. Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
so it's a lot with just figuring out like a vision, an initial vision for it. And I think the hardest thing for me was grappling with and accepting the fact that God may be calling me to plant the seed, and I may never see the like full tree, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that doesn't mean that I don't continue to water the seed.
Right.
I don't continue to plant the seeds and water them, right? And so that's the biggest thing that has been just pushing me, just like dealing
Yeah.
with like patience, and truly understanding, and also like pushing back my own insecurities with it. Like I said, I wasn't, growing up in church every single day like situation. I just have this thing, right? Like I feel like God is continuing to just like push me to the purpose that He has for me, and I'm trying to you know do my part and continuously submit to Him. But yeah, there are some times where I'm just like, I'm not qualified to do this. But then I remember that um, it's he doesn't qualify.
He doesn't
He
call the qualify. He qualifies the call. Yep.
Yes. Yep. And so I remember that, and that helps me to like get through. And I think part of just that mission is really finding opportunities for different guys to do different things, right? So I think it's the same with people. We're all different people. Like some are introverts, some are extroverts.
Yeah.
Uh, some people like to connect over things like sports or outdoors things, and some guys they don't really,
Hmm.
like they're tired. They work all week and they come home and they have kids, or if they even if they don't have kids, like some people are just like, hey, like I would rather be home. I'd rather read a
Hmm.
book. I'd rather in my free time like peace and stuff like that. And so what I am have tried the past few months, and what I'm really working on is trying to figure out how can we have multiple opportunities for different guys to be engaged. So over this past summer, we had a book club by a pastor of one of the churches in our church network,
Okay.
Every Nation. Um, Tim Johnson, he has a book called Fatherless No More. And in that book, he really dives into just like his own journey
Hmm.
of just his relationship with his father and understanding that, God is our father. What does it mean to truly be like a son of God?
Yeah.
And so that was a really great opportunity going through that book and really having, those transparent and vulnerable conversations. Also, thinking through opportunities like panels or
Mm.
also other things. A lot of guys still do want to do like the more outdoorsy things, right? Like going on hikes and going fishing and stuff. So trying to figure
Right.
out different ways to engage different guys in different things. I want to also plan fatherhood things as well for
Hmm.
guys to have opportunities to um, not only yes meet together and as fathers and be able to like talk through things together and build community, but also have opportunities for dads to just be able to like have a day, have a night like with their kids, and
Yeah.
go to like see a sports game or bowling or just things like that where you really get
Right.
an intentional opportunity to just, just show up, spend time together, build those memories, and then you know build community with that as well. So yeah, really just trying to ultimately figure out a bunch of different things, trial and error for sure. But I'm excited. I'm really excited about um, what I think. Again, I may not be able to see the full tree.
Yeah.
Really excited for what it could be.
No, that's awesome. I think, the fact that you're pioneering this, I think there's something special in building and pioneering a brand new ministry because at the same time you're not comparing yourself, to something of old, or how brother so and so did it, or this is what we used to do when we was this. No, this is brand spanking new,
Yeah.
and then at the same time, like just like when you have a baby, you have to take care of it, you have to nurture it, you have to feed it, you have to grow it, you got to change its diaper from time to time, all the things that go into birthing something brand new is a powerful thing, especially when it's in relation to men. And so, I'm excited, to hear more, as you continue to navigate this space and place that is so needed and so necessary, to help the men have a safe space, not just like you said, to do the traditional men thing, but developing men things. Like
Mm.
whatever we do is going to be a man thing.
Yeah.
Like not just say what culture says is a man thing. No, we're going to do this because we as men like doing this. You like this? Okay, we got a space for you here for you to do that. You like doing that? There's a space for you to do that, and it's all in the honor of manhood. And I think men need to understand that and need a place for that because, like you said, the world tells us we have to be this when we're not this or that. We can be this and
Yeah.
that and grow and flourish and thrive because that's how God made us to be. So no, I'm excited to see how, you launch this thing and, get this thing growing. And I know there's going to be many men that come through victory that are blessed because of the heart and the passion that you have to see them reconcile, to God and reconcile to others. So, I'm excited to see that come to fruition as you build this vision, mission, and thing together, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So listen, man, I got one more question for you. I appreciate all that you've shared here tonight. It's been a great conversation. It's been some nuggets and some fruit that I feel like that the men could definitely eat and take back. But I want to ask you this last question. What does the term the holistic man mean to you?
Mm, wow, yeah. I'm glad you asked. Yeah, I think the holistic man means just someone who is in tune with multiple aspects of
Mm,
themselves, right? Understanding what it means to be multifaceted, what it
mm,
means to have intersectionality of different
mm,
things, and just really a man who is in touch with his emotions, man who is in touch with others,
mm.
and just really in society, and just really has a good grasp on a lot of things. And I think that what that does is that helps him just be the best man he can be, but ultimately just the best person that he
Yeah.
could be, and really someone who God can use here on earth.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And that's you hit the nail right on the head. That's exactly what holistic man is. So thank you, Kel, for taking the time just to sit with me and share a little bit of your life, your testimony, what God is doing through you currently, and what you're even looking to build at your church by equipping men in this season. So thank you, brother. I appreciate you, and I'm gonna let you go, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really do just appreciate this opportunity. And I think, again, just expressing the importance of community. I know that, when I was navigating and dealing with some things that, I reached out to you and we sat down and we talked, and that was just something that was really great. And I'm very thankful for that relationship. And yeah, I'm again so excited for all the things that you are doing, all the things the podcast is doing, and looking forward to continuing to cheer you on.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. And I got your back, man.
Appreciate it.
All right, sir. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Well, there you have it. Listen, my man Cam holding it down. He's here in Charlottesville, but he's from the 757. And if there's anything that you can take away from this message, is that you need Jesus and a therapist so that you can be vulnerable and in your emotions. So listen, I know that therapy is something that men have kind of taken for granted, but it can truly help you get through some of the things that you're dealing with internally. And you truly need someone that's willing to sit with you in your dirt, in your pit, in the mud, and help you navigate it so that you can be the best version of yourself that God has ordained. So I hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and I will see you on the next one. Till then, be blessed and stay holistic.
With a gentle hand, God make me a holistic man.